Well, I told you, yes, things are going to happen. Things were going to happen. The other day, in the conversation we had about the Barcelona Negrera case, people were feeling pretty down about the whole thing. Look, today's news. Negrera's son is accusing both Barcelona and his own father. The 7.5 million wasn't for the reports. I only got paid 60,000. How bad must things be for this man to accuse his own father? Well, so I wouldn't end up in jail and could say, I'm out of this. Because I did write reports and I did get this money, 60,000 out of the 7.5 million, right? Well, it was 8.4, but he probably reported 7.5. It must have been on the previous screen, but anyway, it's 8.4. Well, he's just saying what he did. So it's really something remarkable. And now we're talking about this and going into more detail because Bartomeu's lawyer spoke, saying they're leaving very pleased. Because it's been shown here that it was in exchange for the reports. Not the sons, the fathers, no. But I think it's clear. And I hope the judge has understood it clearly. We insist this is the investigation phase. A trial hearing must be opened. Is there much left? For those who ask later, if it's already done, then it's fine as is. This man said it. But there's still a long way to go because Barca is going to fight back with everything they've got. And the defendants will too. Well, apparently one of the defense strategies from Russell's lawyers, as well as Rosell and Bartomeu, is to say that no, that's not the case. No, it's just that there were reports and then we won thanks to Messi, the best team ever. That's what they've ended up saying. I mean, wow, but really what happened today is devastating, absolutely devastating. And my paper marca aren't saying anything either because Jorge Calabres from El Español broke the news. El Español obtained access to Javier Enriquez's statement before the judge in the Negrera case, which implicates both the club and the former vice president. Why are you? For corruption charges against his father. Not with these statements, but I insist, other outlets aren't saying anything at all. We already know why they're not saying it, partly because this access is an exclusive for them. Calabres and the Spanish outlet have had the scoop from Javier Enriquez. Anyway, they can still post that, and now we'll take a look at these papers' online front pages. Maybe they've already put it up. Hey, according to El Español, well, this is what Negrera's son is saying. No? All right, before anything else, so I don't forget, because this is really important. And to wrap things up about the whole Simeone thing, this is what the newspaper Marca has published, just so you know what they're saying. Well, Marca newspaper, Marca universe, okay, Marca radio, Marca newspaper talking about Simeone, kind of what I told you in the last video, not giving any examples of from the crossbar. Wow, well, that thing at the beach bar was absolutely amazing. I mean, it was amazing. It's fine because Simeone was right to stand up for himself. Because you can't just put up with any insults from the crowd. And what they did to Vinicius. Well, you know, it's pretty clear that that nonsense from El Chiringuito was going to do exactly what it was going to do. But this is Marca newspaper. Universe. They say Simeone lost his cool over something unacceptable. Okay, well, this is what people were talking about back then regarding what happened in Oviedo with Vinicius. What happened at the Tartiere is Vinicius' problem. Does this kind of thing only happen to him, guys? Or just Vinicius? However, what happens to Simeone doesn't just happen to him. He's had these experiences both as a player and coach. Like we said in the last video, I won't repeat myself a lot. And so, of course, it only happens to him, but they don't tell Simeone, right? I didn't do it with Siemens, but hold on, there's more, and it's even more serious. These are shots taken from the stands, so just be aware. The serious part is about Simeone, since he's the visible coach and stuff. But hold on, I'm going to turn the volume down here. Here comes a staff member, and that's the one. I think they'll point it out here. All right, that one throws a water bottle. Look, there's the water bottle. Well, he throws it or something, but it's full, right? The bottle? Yeah, but I mean, toss it gently. Okay, like without any force. Sorry, okay, but wait, they're leaving from there. He leaves and is going to come back again. And when he comes back again, he spits and then they leave. All right, a staff member. I don't recognize him. I don't know who he is, but he's part of Cholo Simeone's staff. Unbelievable. Someone from Real Madrid should be the one to do it. Are they going to discuss this too? They're going to say, well, sure, it's because they get insulted, right? Honestly, we'll see in the next few hours because I think this just came out very recently, but it's really unbelievable. And another important thing before we get into the whole topic, Negrera is the one about the Castilla. About the Castilla thing, hang on while I see if I can find it here. I think I can. This ticket is good for the game against Racing de Ferrol. Do you remember the one that was postponed? I think that was the one played yesterday. In Valdebebas, Madrid lost 1-0 to Racing de Ferrol. Is there a time for this whole Jug Ones thing? Those guys from that Chiringuito show or whatever it's called on La Sexta? And over on the sideline, this happens to Joan Martinez. You see what I mean? He gets past one, keeps stepping on the ball. Check out how the Racing de Ferrol player gets his arm ready for the move. Boom, that elbow to the face is really something to see. Pretty clear, the referee and the assistant referee. Maybe it's hard to see. The main ref, the assistant, is right next to him. He raises the flag saying, "That's a foul, okay?" All right, hang on a sec. I'm going to turn up the volume here because I think he's talking. Now Arbeloa is speaking. All right, it's looking good. Will we see it clearer here?
A clear elbow to the side. That's my ref.
All right. The elbowing is clear and the assistant is right there. All right, so Arbeloa asked for the review. They take a look at it and they don't send him off. It's just more of the same by now, not only with the first team, but also with Castilla. To the point where Arbeloa says, "I'm not fed up yet, but honestly, it looks like the whole season is going to be like this."
The level is what it is because you just can't go around putting your arm around a player's neck.
He asked for the play to be reviewed.
Well, after seeing it, he asked for the play to be reviewed, watched it, and said there was nothing. That's just unbelievable.
It's his call.
I'm not sure from which angle. Was the referee checking if it was the shot? Be careful with that too. I mean, I'm not sure how many cameras there are, but I think he sticks his elbow out in a way that's really risky. The elbowing is more than obvious, arm raised. I mean, it's the kind of elbow that should be in the soccer rulebook. That's an elbow, that's a red card, okay?
It was very clear, which is why Arbeloa loses his cool.
Well, Arbeloa loses his cool, and then in the press conference you say this, that's the refereeing level. And that the mistakes keep happening, that's just how it goes all year, Alvaro said. That's how it is all year.
Yeah, it's just man.
All right, come on, let's get into the whole Negrera thing. I have it in this one. All right, let's take it step by step. Look here, Russell and Bartomeu. They said Barca didn't need to spend money because they already had Messi and Peak. So, like it says here, the case is closed and there's nothing to do. No. But hold on, I've spoken. Now let's hear the Sun's statement. All right, but let's go a bit. I think he's spoken. Oh, he didn't speak afterward. And at one point, they told this gentleman, who happens to be Bartomeu's lawyer. And watch how the guy reacts. He has no idea.
The important thing is that today, it's been proven there are payments, that's true.
But there's compensation and it will stick to the written reports.
Legally speaking, regardless of any speculations you or the press might legitimately make, or whatever ideas you put forward or opinions you have, legally there are payments because there is a very significant consideration. Secondly, regarding the matter of ending Javier Enriquez's services in connection with the situation involving his father. But it's also been made clear that the decision for Javier Enrique to stop working at Barca has been made. Take action before the father becomes a burden to the technical committee of referees. And if on top of that we also add and take into account that this matter is already settled, and on top of that, no one has ever claimed that Mr. Enriquez Negrera offered any kind of payment to any referee to influence the outcome of a match. Our takeaway today, and we're pleased about it, is that since there was already payment in return, we have a legal defense. And since no one can prove it because it doesn't exist. Corruption in sports, in terms of payments to referees to influence the outcome, we believe that charge won't hold up either. So we're leaving quite happy today.
All right, this is what we were talking about the other day with Cesar Lage and Juan Luis Martín de Pozuelo. That thing about these folks basing their defense on that, there's some kind of arrangement with Enrique de Negrera, and it won't be possible to prove that envelopes with money were given to a referee to influence the outcome of the match from just one game. Of course, that won't seem likely, but you never know. But no, it won't show up. But of course, there's some money no one knows where went. And then what's clear is the matter of the mere activity offense. They're basing it on this because they can't, because they don't have the nerve to say it's justified for Barca to a club paying the head of the referees 8.4 million euros over the course of nearly 20 years. They probably don't even want that today for sure. They should be prepared for the possibility that I'll tell the judge. So then this just can't be done. It's not possible. It was really poorly done, but of course, no, there's no sports corruption crime here since this can't be proven. No way. And we're getting into that area Cesar Relaj mentioned, where Barca could indeed be convicted for just committing the act itself. Then there are others who say, no, it must happen differently. Well, we'll see about that when the trial actually starts. But there's a big contradiction here because he's talking. A payment for some services, and what services are those? This guy is kind of talking in code about the services. They were reports, and those reports are physical. Yeah, of course, Laporta showed them at that press conference. Now we're seeing the footage of those boxes being moved when nothing was clear. And Laporta, watch out, the door, no, wasn't talking. Today, Laporta will give his statement on November 25th alongside Luis Enrique and Valverde. Let's hear from Luis Enrique and Valverde. Valverde once said he never saw those reports.
Let's see what Luis Enrique says.
But here everything falls apart like a house of cards when Javier Enriquez shows up, and now they're going to bring it up again. And he says, it's not that the reports were mine and I got paid this money for them. I don't know why my dad got paid. It is. And we turn to the father's statement, the only one available, since his defense now says he has Alzheimer's and can't testify. And he stated to the tax office and the prosecutor's office that Barca was paying him to ensure neutrality within the refereeing body so that no decisions would be made against him, which suggests they were paying him to have influence. Makes perfect sense. Anyway, it's the same old. So there's not going to be a cash payment to one referee, but if you've been paying the boss for so long, then who are the referees accountable to? In promotion mode, relegation mode, and assignment mode. If you make 300,000 or half that, depending on whether you're in first or second. I think it's pretty simple, but of course, that's from the perspective of everyday truth and legal truth. Let's see here. But these people are contradicting themselves.
Take it. Have you been involved in his father's work?
Yes, but I'm not going to get into internal matters now. But this has already been said so you can get the idea and understand the position. My position, and out of respect, not to all of you.
Jose Maria Javier.
Enriquez has distanced himself from that. No, but this is something else. Okay, perfect. So yeah, it's just something different. It's just that today Javier Enriquez's statement has taken all these people out of the game. Check out what he said back then and what Bartomeu will say. All right, let's listen to Bartomeu and see what Miguel Soldevilla said back then, who was actually the journalist Adria Soldevilla. Along with Iker Rodriguez, who broke the news, what Bartomeu told them. But first, let's listen to Bartomeu, since it's better to hear from him first. So then he gets the burn, right?
Do I speak Spanish well? Well, today some of us who were involved in the club during the years starting in 2013 have given our statements. Until 2018. Today it's become clear that many of the theories that have been put forward in recent years have now been dismissed. Many things have been clarified. Above all, it's made clear to us that there were some sports consulting services and reports on refereeing decisions, providing advice for both pre- and post-match matters, for Barca as well as for the Barca first team. But that at that moment there was a payment to be made, and it was clear to us today that it has nothing to do with Mr. Enrique Negrera leaving the federation. When his son was told in the first quarter of 2018 that he would stop providing services to Barca at the end of the season.
Are you telling me now that he left earlier? Anyway, that doesn't really matter because maybe they've shown there was actually something to what they were being accused of, but not exactly as claimed. And he sees it as a win. It's awesome. I don't really care about that at all. This guy is saying that there were some reports that were actually being paid for. And like we said before, they were paying 60,000 euros for the Sun's reports. But what about the remaining 8.4 million? How are they going to explain those? They just can't explain them. And today the judge said, okay, great, you've explained this perfectly. What about the other?
Also, that theory that one thing was the result of the other. It's also been cleared up and settled today.
So, come on, we've got it all clear yet.
I'll say it again, we've said it all. President Rosell made it very clear and said, well, besides, we had the best team in the world back then. Barca won it fair and square. Well, all strong arguments. Stats and titles that during those years we were fortunate enough to achieve.
The same argument Lance Armstrong used to claim he had won all 7 Tours de France. Well, of course, he was really good. He messed us up. In fact, he was probably the best, but he doped.
But they didn't pay to influence anything.
So no, there weren't any payments made, like I said before, for the sports reports. I think I've explained it now.
You don't pay to influence. No, there won't be any payment for what I mentioned earlier for sports reports. This is what he told the judge. And now you have both statements, Bartomeu's and the son's, saying that the ones from his father weren't actually his. Well, they should ask his dad.
What's that, Maria? They've always tried to tarnish the best Barca in history.
Here, David Bernabeu really couldn't be any more ridiculous if he tried. It's just beyond ridiculous. David Bernabeu. There's been an attempt to tarnish the greatest team in history. What a question, pretty tough one. Bartomeu stops and says, wow, this is mine.
But of course, from some perspectives, what's clear is that Barca has enjoyed 2 years filled with major successes. We've had the greatest games in history, especially when it comes to soccer. And we've won with all the flair in every field. Thank you.
Well, that's all fine, sure, but paying a top referee boss 8.4 million euros in shady money. You're all corrupt, part of a criminal group. All right, let's see what Adria Soldevilla had to say, the journalist who, together with Iker Rodriguez, uncovered the Barcelona Negrera scandal when he was talking about Bartomeu.
The Negrera case.
We were paying this man because of his son, Sefonos. We didn't know the father owned it and we're paying the son. Well, at first, of course not. We hadn't really looked much into the company details since neither side had them. But Bartomeu tried to go down that path. Until, after what felt like 2025 repetitive questions, he finally admitted to me about the car that, well, you know, these reports exist about his son, but then what? When they stopped paying, the glass didn't win anymore. What happened?
Maybe they made a mistake by stopping payments to Negrera and all that.
This comment from Movie Star, this kind of remark, in the end makes us think that yes, they knew what it was about, and it wasn't exactly about reports.
So then the comment was maybe they shouldn't have stopped paying Negrera, and now Barca doesn't win leagues? Well, in the end, won.
18-19, but later on it no longer seemed like they thought yes, that they knew what it was about, and it wasn't exactly about the reports.
Afterwards, of course, they say they knew what it was about, that it wasn't because of the reports. Those came later. Negrera was paid separately, long before his son ever got paid. Negrera's been getting paid since 2001, and Laporta even claimed it was from Nunez back in '93. Well, the son was just a kid then. He started writing reports. I'm not sure what year, 15, 16 or so, I think, right? Sure, all the previous years. I mean, it's all super clear, man. But oh well. Let's keep going here with more stuff. Wait, here's this thing, okay? This is what Javier Enriquez says. Sure, he's not saying anything we don't already know from Jorge Calabres at El Español. But this is all he said to the press leaving the courthouse.
I'm not making any statements. Just to say I've been waiting to speak with the right person. I've already done that, meaning I already spoke to who I needed.
But he answered everyone involved.
You'll see it in the case. Sometimes you get access faster than I do.
But once he was hired, right after that, he was already posting about people who had passed away. No, you're right. Many times a lot of journalists have access. Earlier even than what to the access he'd have. No, it's just that he knows what he said. But he doesn't want to say it here in front of the media.
We've heard you. Yeah, we heard you say you stood by the truth, you know, right?
So how about here? The whole walk. It doesn't answer, doesn't say anything else. They don't ask him whether you think he was trying to influence Barca's refereeing decisions through payments and such. He's not saying anything. This guy, this is the picture. Remember back then when we talked about the boxes, the ones we mentioned that day? of those empty boxes moving around. This is history. This is the history of Spain. Man, this is the history of Spain. Absolutely amazing. Okay. This is the statement given by Javier Enrique. He says, well, let's see. Hold on a second. In his statement, Negrera's son told the judge, in testimony obtained by the Spanish outlet, that the 7.5 million euros his father got from Barca between 2001 and 2018 was actually 8.4 million euros. But anyway, it wasn't for the reports he wrote. Javier Enriquez claims he was paid around 60,000 euros for that work. This contradicts the account given by Joan Laporta, current Barca president, which Negrera also received payment for during his first stint in charge of the club from 2008 to 2010. Laporta defended the payments to Negrera. The reports written by his son, the same one who contradicts him and accuses both his father and Barcelona of being involved in corruption? All right then. Today's news was intense, really intense. Clara's door on November 25th, together with Luis Enrique and Valverde, will be part of the event. Laporta won't be able to lie, and it's clear he hasn't been truthful as a witness. He won't be able to lie, and I hope the investigating judge takes it into account, because I imagine they'll keep in mind what was said at that press conference. The press conference the judge is handling, at least as far as I understand it. All right, because if they see that they're saying one thing, if he says the same thing as what Negrera's son has already stated, would that mean he's lying and could go in as a witness but end up leaving as a defendant, right? For giving false testimony. As a witness, remember that defendants are allowed to lie to defend themselves, but witnesses are not. I've never fully understood this. A lawyer comes and explains it, right? By the way, Mark, I heard it on Marca. It's none of that. It's that the judge is opening a trial against Asensio and 3 other former players, which I gather was already known. So Asensio was charged. We actually already knew that. Has one of the 2 women who filed the complaint already forgiven Asensio? Is the other left? Well, this is pretty much what happened today. Let's check out what's going on with Marca. See what headline they're running today, and then we'll move on to see what it has. Is Mourinho back at Benfica? But there's that thing about Asensio, just saying. And about the Barcelona case, Negrera. A statement from Bartomeu today has put a lot of theories to rest. All right, Luis Enrique and Valverde's appearance before the judge will be on December 12th. Sorry, it looks like the date has now changed. And Simeone defending himself, of course. What else would you expect? There's nothing else here in the Marca newspaper. Let's check the AS newspaper to see if they're leading with anything about this. Nothing on Bellingham at all. I was really going to call him to mix. Bartomeu Mastantuono sparks a heated discussion. In the Negrera case, they stick to his statements. Nothing about the son's statement? Interesting, I'm telling you, it's news from another outlet. But come on, you quote it, why? What Negrera's son said is incredibly important and could have a huge impact on things. And you have to quote it. Hey, Negrera's son is saying this, and it completely changes the course of what's been happening. And he said it in Spanish, okay. But he said this, or according to Spanish, Negrera's son says this in testimony. They're looking to get access to what they should have very soon because it's time. Jorge Calabars has had exclusive access to the information. They should have access already. And yet they still aren't posting anything. And that's because of the league. Do I cut these outlets some slack since they're getting funding from the league? Well, they don't like it. They don't like that Barca is starting to show its flaws even more in this matter because it ends up being harmful to the league. Anyway, well, we'll leave you with this image because I think, as I said, it changes the course of how things are unfolding. See you in the next one. Give it a like. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe, comment, and share, please. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye now.